Hello, my dear friends. How are you doing? Hope you are having an amazing day and not having to deal with drama. Ready for new stories I have for you today? Let's go to the first one. And don't forget to listen to the end of the story, guys, to hear my insights. Enjoy the stories. And don't forget to like and subscribe. And of course, don't forget to leave a comment. To give some context, I, 27 female, have always had what I thought was a pretty typical family life. My parents had been together for over 30 years, and I grew up with one older brother, 30 male, and a younger sister, 25 female. Our family wasn't perfect, whose is? But we were tight-knit enough that I never suspected anything truly horrible was going on behind the scenes. That changed 2 years ago when I found out my dad, 54 female, had been cheating on my mom for years. I remember the day my mom sat us all down to tell us what had happened. It felt like my whole world cracked open. Not only had my dad been unfaithful, but the woman he had been seeing had a child with him, a son, who was 4 years old at the time. My dad had been financially supporting this child behind our backs, hiding it from my mom, and it all came to light when she found out about the secret payments. My mom, understandably, was devastated. She kicked him out, and they separated almost immediately. The whole situation threw me off. My dad, who'd I'd looked up to, suddenly became a stranger. I couldn't wrap my head around the fact that he had lived a double life with another woman and a child. To me, that little boy was a constant reminder of how our family was torn apart, and no matter how hard I tried to compartmentalize, I couldn't just see him as innocent. I know that's unfair, but I couldn't help it. I distanced myself from my dad a lot after that, and things between us have been rocky ever since. 2 weeks ago, I decided to host a small gathering at my place. My brother had just gotten a promotion at work, and I thought it would be a great excuse for the family to get together and celebrate. It was meant to be a low-key evening, just immediate family, no kids, no extended relatives. I was really looking forward to it, because for the first time in a while, it felt like we could have a normal family moment after all the chaos with my parents' separation. Despite everything that had happened, I still invited my dad to the party. I thought maybe, just maybe, we could start rebuilding our relationship if we kept things simple. I called him ahead of time and made it very clear that it was just going to be the close family and that no kids were invited. I didn't think I had to spell it out, but I wanted to avoid any potential awkwardness. He agreed, no problem. Or so I thought. The evening of the party started off great. My mom, brother, sister, and I were all in good spirits, cooking together, laughing, and genuinely enjoying each other's company. My dad was supposed to arrive later, and I was hopeful that we could have a civil evening for once, without any lingering tension. Then my dad showed up, and with him, the child. I felt like I'd been hit by a truck when I saw them standing in my doorway. My dad smiled awkwardly, like he knew he was about to drop a bombshell. And there was his 6-year-old son, clutching a small gift bag. It took me a second to process what was happening. I told him not to bring any kids, especially not this child, the literal product of his affair. I could see the color drain from my mom's face when she saw them, and my sister just stood there, frozen. I was furious, but I tried to stay calm. I asked my dad why he had brought the boy when we had clearly agreed this was an adults-only evening. He gave me this half-apologetic, half-explanatory response about how he didn't want to leave his son behind, and that he thought it was time for us to meet him. He acted like it was no big deal, like it was completely normal for him to show up at a family gathering, uninvited, with the very child who symbolized the destruction of our family. My heart was pounding in my chest, and I could feel my anger rising. This was not the time. This was not the place. We were supposed to be celebrating my brother's promotion, and instead, my dad had turned the evening into a tense standoff. My mom was visibly uncomfortable, and my brother was too stunned to say anything. All the good energy we had built up earlier in the evening evaporated in an instant. I told my dad that it wasn't appropriate to bring his son to this particular event. I reminded him that we had agreed this was going to be a small family gathering, and no kids were supposed to be there, especially not his son from the affair. I was trying my best to keep my cool, but it was hard. All I could think about was how insensitive and thoughtless it was for him to spring this on us, as if we were supposed to just smile and play happy families. My dad didn't back down. He told me I was overreacting, and that it was time we started accepting his son as part of our family. He made it sound like I was the one with the problem for not embracing this kid, and that the longer we waited, the harder it would be. He kept saying that the boy was innocent in all of this, and that I needed to stop punishing him for my dad's mistakes. That's when I lost it. I told him that this night was supposed to be about my brother, not about him trying to force his son into our lives without any warning. I told him he had crossed the line by bringing the child unannounced, and that if he couldn't respect the boundaries I had set, he needed to leave. I didn't care that he thought I was being harsh or unfair. In that moment, all I could think about was how my mom was standing there, holding back tears, and how my dad was trying to bulldoze his way into making this situation normal for us. My dad kept trying to defend his decision, saying that we needed to get over it and move forward. But I wasn't budging. I told him again to leave and take the child with him. I couldn't believe he had put me in this position, making me the bad guy for not being ready to embrace this kid into our family dynamic. After a few more tense minutes of back and forth, he finally left, looking disappointed and angry. Since that night, things have been pretty bad between my dad and me. He's furious that I kicked him out, and he's told my siblings that I'm being unreasonable. He keeps saying that I'm punishing an innocent child for something he had no control over, and that I need to get over my resentment. He's also upset that I humiliated him in front of the rest of the family by making a scene. My brother has been supportive, telling me I had every right to set boundaries, and that my dad was out of line for bringing the child without any warning. My sister, on the other hand, is more conflicted. She feels sorry for the boy and thinks maybe I should have handled it differently. My mom hasn't said much, but I can tell she's heartbroken all over again. I've been left wondering if I overreacted. I know that the child didn't ask for any of this, and part of me feels guilty for pushing him away. But at the same time, I feel like my dad was trying to force us into accepting a situation that we weren't ready for. I had made my expectations clear, and he completely disregarded them. I'm not sure what the right thing to do is anymore. So, Reddit. Am I the a-hole for kicking my dad and his child from the affair out of my party when he brought the kid unannounced? Well, I get why OP is upset. What OP's dad did was wrong, and it's understandable that OP's not ready to welcome this child with open arms. But at the same time, the poor boy didn't do anything wrong. He's just a kid caught in the middle of this mess. OP's dad shouldn't have brought him without warning, but kicking both of them out might have been too harsh in my opinion. There's a way to protect your boundaries without completely rejecting the child, but OP's dad definitely bears most of the blame here. And now let's hear the community's opinion. Not the a-hole. Your dad completely disrespected the boundaries you set for the party. This wasn't about the child. It was about your dad forcing a situation on you and your family when he knew the wounds were still raw. You made it clear it was a small, family-only event, and he ignored that to push his own agenda. I feel bad for the kid, but it's not your responsibility to manage your dad's poor choices. He's the one who created the situation, and he should have respected your wishes. Not the a-hole. You explicitly told your dad no kids, and he went behind your back and did exactly what you asked him not to. He's trying to fast-track a reconciliation that you're clearly not ready for, and he did it in a way that completely disrespected your wishes. It's not fair to put you in that position, especially during what was supposed to be a happy celebration for your brother. You didn't ask for this drama, and your dad needs to face the consequences of his actions instead of blaming you for not playing along. You're the a-hole. I get that you're hurt, and your dad betrayed your family in a massive way. But kicking him and the kid out wasn't the right move. That child is completely innocent, and it's not fair to treat him like a symbol of your dad's mistakes. He's just a boy who didn't ask to be in this situation. Yes, your dad should have respected your wishes, but you could have handled it with more compassion. You don't have to accept the child into your life right away, but don't punish him for something he had no part in. I, female 28, just received a text message from my grandparents, mid-60s, letting me know I am uninvited from seeing them for Christmas. Well, actually, I'm not allowed to come see them at all until I make amends with my bio mom and my aunt, both of which have done pretty terrible things to me. My grandparents basically raised me, and though I knew they were never thrilled at the idea of raising me, I guess I just didn't expect to be disowned so easily. This is a bit complicated, so I'll try to make it short. The setup. My bio mom, female 48, was a single parent for the beginning of my life, and my grandparents helped us out a lot. From what I have gathered, my bio mom didn't really want me, but also didn't want to adopt me out, so she just kept me. Eventually, my bio mom married my stepdad, male, 58, who was aggressive towards me, and only me, and my bio mom began to emotionally A me. Around 14, I began to move in with my grandparents who still lived in the next town over. Their house was closer to school, so I made that excuse to stay with them. They let me move in and never asked why, and never said anything. I never told them about the aggression, though they knew my parents were very controlling and weren't the best parents. As an only child, I didn't see the need to explain why I didn't want to live at home, as long as my grandparents took care of me. They let me join after-school activities, let me have friends, go to friends' houses, and gave me the opportunity to be a relatively normal teenager. I still had to go home occasionally. My grandparents insisted, and I wanted to keep the peace as best I could. I often joked that I was my grandparents' third daughter, but they were never comfortable with the joke. By the time I was 18, I lived with them almost full-time before I left for college. Bio mom. As a young adult, I opened my own photography studio and made pretty good money. I began putting that money into my childhood bank account. I never bothered to check the account, as I was only putting money in and never taking money out. That is, until I went away to college. That's when I realized that my mom had been stealing money from the account as I put it in. As I opened it so young, she had to be on the account, to the tune of about $3,000. My grandparents convinced me to, begrudgingly, open a new account and let it go. In my senior year of college, I get a letter in my campus mail that I have reached my loan limit and would need to begin paying for college out of pocket for the next semester. This was unexpected, as my grandparents and parents told me that they would pay for all of college. I looked into it and realized that my bio mom had signed me up for $30,000 worth of loans. I'm not sure if she forged my name or had me sign something without telling me what it was, but I definitely was not made aware of this. My guess is that she had all mail directed to the family home, and that's why I didn't know about it until I got that letter. With the help of my grandparents, who were pretty upset, I tried to confront my bio mom about the money, loans. Bio mom denied everything, asked why we would attack her like this, why we would set her up when she thought she was invited over for lunch, etc., and promptly left. That was about 5 years ago, and I haven't spoken to her since. My grandparents then agreed to take on the loan debt and use my inheritance to pay off the debt. Flash forward. My stepdad died last year, a heart attack in his sleep. Obviously, it was very unexpected, and my bio mom's life was basically shattered. She had built her whole life around him, and without him, she had no one but my grandparents. They forgave her for the money, or at least as far as I know, it was never brought up again, and they became her support network. They let me know of my stepdad's passing, and I sent my bio mom a card with a very nice print of a photo I had taken the last time my stepdad and I went out on a photo walk. My opinion was that I had done enough and had opened the door to potential contact if she wanted, but my grandparents disagreed. My aunt, female 42. I am a professional photographer, and several years ago photographed my aunt's wedding. I made it clear that the act of photographing was the gift alone, and that when they wanted prints, they should come to buy them through me. A year later, I see the photos up at their house, and they definitely didn't order through me. I politely pointed out that technically, they can't get those photos printed elsewhere, as I hold the copyright, and I only gifted them my time, editing. Well, they threw a huge fit, screaming at me over text, calling me retarded, saying that I'm a terrible photographer, and that anyone who likes my work is a blind idiot, and I will never amount to anything, etc. I simply replied that one day you will look back at this moment and realize that you are both terrible people for what you have said to me over something so small. They continued to chew me out, but I didn't reply. I haven't spoken to my aunt or uncle in about 8 years. Today, I have moved away and live in another state. I haven't been home or seen my grandparents in 2 years. They live 6 hours away. I just got a new job this year, and I get a week off for Christmas. I decided this would be a great time to go see them. 3 weeks ago, I called them and asked if my husband and I could come to visit. We weren't going to be there for Christmas itself, to avoid potential conflict with my aunt, bio mom, but we wanted to visit for a day or so. They said that would be fine. Then, last night, I received the text message that I am no longer welcome to Christmas. I call to ask what is going on, and my grandpa explains that tension is too high and they are too old to be in the middle of such things. Unless I reach out and make up with my family, I can't come. I remind them of the money from my bio mom and the fight with my aunt, and point out that I am the victim in both of these. And they said they don't remember nor care about the fights, just that they are telling me like it is. I also point out the card to Biomom and that it isn't my fault she didn't reply, but again, they say that wasn't the point. To reiterate, I asked if this meant that I wasn't welcome to see them at all until we reconcile, and they confirmed that statement. I asked why I'm being punished for the actions of my aunt Biomom, and they didn't have an answer. I told them that in that case, I didn't know when I would see them again and hung up. I'm just at a loss. I understand that they don't want to be in the middle, but they refuse to even meet us for lunch. I guess the signs were there that they didn't want to raise me, but I just thought that they cared. I mean, they must have. They paid for me to be on the track team. They helped me open my business. My grandma made my wedding dress, and my grandpa helped me apply to grad school. Am I missing something? Am I being unreasonable? I feel like they are choosing their daughters over me, and they only ever raised me out of obligation. Then I feel like a child for being heartbroken about this at the age of 28. Edit. Some people have commented about my gift to my aunt. Here's my explanation. Hiring a good wedding photographer can cost thousands of dollars. If she didn't like the idea of having to buy through me, we would have talked about it. Or she could have said no to my gift and hired someone else, or not have a photographer at all. It's not that I wouldn't let them print the photos, it's that they had to buy the prints from me. I have a lab I work with in New York who does all my printing. I have a special paper chosen, printing profiles for that printer, etc., etc. Sure, I was going to make money off them ordering through me, but I always want to make sure my prints are the best they can be. Any prints of my work are a reflection of me as a photographer. Anyway, I would definitely agree if I had outrageous print prices, but I don't. I have always believed in reasonable print prices because I don't like the idea of holding images hostage. Again, she agreed to this gift and then got upset later. And even if I should have given her the copyright, her response was extremely childish and unacceptable. You have a toxic, crappy family. But they're still the people that raised you, and still the people that gave you a semblance of normalcy during your formative years. For your own sanity and well-being, you need to reply to your grandparents that if they ever want to see you, all they have to do is ask, and you'll come visit them, as long as neither your aunt or your egg donor are present. Then, cut your mom and aunt out of your life. Ducking sucks, and you'll feel guilt and anger, and maybe more on the stages of grief, but you will be happier in the long run. Plan a nice getaway with your husband. Go to Las Vegas or San Diego or Yosemite or something memorable where you can distract yourself from where you're not and focus on the positive. Your grandparents are struggling because they raised two horrible people and haven't been able to extricate themselves from them. You mentioned they are now your biomom support system. They are trying to cut down on the drama by forcing you, the person who acts most like an actual adult, to reconcile instead of forcing their children to act like adults, probably because they lack the skills to do so. This is a them problem, not a you problem. I would reach out to them one more time to set your boundaries. You want to see them, but will not be making any overtures of reconciliation to their daughters. Then leave it up to them. It sucks. I guarantee they love you. They probably feel stuck and don't want to make the right decision because it is hard and they are exhausted from dealing with these people all the time. Remember that you can only control you and your actions. Everyone else is responsible for themselves. My stepsister, Angelica, is 28 and I am 30. My stepmother, 54, married my father when my stepsister was 13. Angelica has never got along with neither my stepmother nor my father. She never called them Mum or Dad, but by their first names only. My father was known to be more gentle and loving with me than he was with her. He was way more harsh and rather aggressive, since I was his biological daughter. When she was 18 and I was 20, my stepmother got diagnosed with cancer and eventually passed away. Angelica's relationship with my dad hasn't got much better after her death, and as she grew, they began to fight more often than they have before. Angelica left home for university and has never tried to contact us again. She barely visited us, not even on special occasions. She met a boy named John, and they married at a young age. She didn't bother telling us, as she said she buried us a long time ago, hasn't even told us about their first child. Anyway, she and her husband opened their very own modeling agency. They are making a large amount of money from it each year. I've heard about it since a close friend works for them, and she told me about it. Angelica and John live in a mansion. They wear the latest designer clothing, and their 8 children all go to private schools. They go on big vacation trips every year. They are practically rich. My father got diagnosed with cancer about a few months ago. He isn't doing so well and is currently staying with me and my spouse. I told Angelica, who came to visit. It was a very awkward moment for the two of us, as it has been a long time since we interacted with each other. Before she left, she said she'd be willing to cover half of the costs for a private caregiver. I agreed. I didn't think it would be that expensive. However, it was very expensive. I called Angelica and I've told her that I couldn't afford half of the caregiver's salary and asked her if she could contribute more. She said she'd cover up 50% and no more. We started to fight with each other, and she said she was being more than generous with both me and him, and that he didn't even deserve the 50% she was willing to cover up. That really made me angry. She earns way more than I do a year. I have no problem in taking care of my father, but I really don't have the time to do it. I've been feeling very stressed, sad, and overall filled with rage. The government-supplied home care that visits us isn't enough. I do whatever I possibly can, but I can't spend that much time with him in the morning when he most needs me due to work. I couldn't believe how careless Angelica was about my father's health. I tried to contact her husband, but he said he does not have the desire to get involved with our problems. Angelica got very angry with me after she found out that I've called her husband asking for help. I'm really confused right now. Am I the a-hole? Edit. I tried talking to her again today. I was crying and begging her to help, but she refused and started to talk about how my father poisoned her childhood and that he could rot in hell for all she cared. She is honestly showing no remorse for him. Yes, the a-hole. I don't know what happened in your childhood, but she obviously feels resentment towards your family. If she cut off all contact with you to the point where you weren't invited to her wedding or child's birth, then she feels no obligation towards your family, but she's being nice enough to pay half of your father's expenses. Yes, the a-hole. Nobody else owes you any of their money. It was kind for her to offer to pay 50% in the first place, and she's upholding her end of the deal. It doesn't sound like your dad was very nice to her at all, so I'd take the 50% if you need help with the costs of all of this, because if you keep pushing, I wouldn't be surprised if she retracted her offer totally. I feel bad for her, really. Her childhood sounds heartbreaking, and you seem to talk about that very casually, as though your father's treatment of her was okay. Maybe you could try really thinking about what it must be like from her side. Why would she help someone now who was unkind to her throughout her childhood? My parents own a couple of restaurants in our town and make good money from that. My father recently decided that he wanted to make like a college fund for all of his grandchildren, as he felt that was a much better investment of his money. Now, my sister's, Haley, husband, Mark, has 3 children from his previous marriage that live with them and visit their mother on the weekend. And my sister and him have 2 children of their own. Both of them have their own business and earn a lot. My father wanted to create college funds for all 5 of the children, whereas I don't think that it is fair that he includes Mark's 3 children in the funds, as they are not really a part of the family. I mean, they don't even call Haley mom, and Haley literally celebrates all of the holidays with Mark's ex because of them. I, Alice, believe that Haley's stepchildren shouldn't be involved. I mean, that should be Mark's and his ex's problem. And the amount of money Mark has, I don't think paying for college for all 3 of the kids would be a problem at all. Plus, his ex has a well-paying job too. Plus, her current husband also has a huge business. My brother, Alex, however, thinks that I am being insensitive and should have no problem whatsoever with them being included, as they are part of our family. Am I the a-hole here? Yes, the a-hole. Did it ever occur to you that your opinion is completely irrelevant because that money isn't yours? Yes, the a-hole. Not just for trying to control what someone else does with their money, but also for saying that those children are not really part of the family. They are part of the family. Your sister is married to their dad, and the children live with them. You shouldn't be trying to make children feel like they don't belong.